guys, it's Amy Purdy. I have 2 prosthetic legs. I lost both my legs at the age of 19 from something called bacterial meningitis. Everyone told me I wouldn't be able to snowboard again, but it just takes a little bit of creativity and a lot of drive.
You just redefine what is possible.
You know, I think the very first moment that I experienced what teamwork was like with my doctors and with my nurses was when I was in the hospital when I had meningitis. So there's a story that I want to share, and it was a very special moment for me and my dad actually. But about a few weeks after I entered the hospital, I was still in ICU. I was in major kidney failure. I hadn't yet lost both of my legs. I was still hooked up to all of these machines. I had not sat up yet, so I was pretty much laying flat in my hospital bed for weeks at that time, and I was still very touch and go. But there was a night when I was laying in my hospital room, and my dad was in there with me, and it started raining outside, and I could see the rain, and I could hear the rain, and I could see the lightning and the thunder. And I told my dad, I wish I could go out there. And my dad at 4 a.m. said, we're gonna do everything we can to get you out there so you can listen to the rain. And my dad went out and he gathered up all the nurses that were in the ICU, and he pretty much demanded, you know, my daughter hasn't sat upright for weeks. She hasn't left this hospital room for weeks, and she wants to smell the rain. And it took a lot of convincing and conversations, but this group of nurses ended up coming into the room at 4 a.m, unhooking all the machines and putting them on portable machines. And they and my dad wheeled me out of the hospital into the parking lot where we were able to sit there and smell the rain and watch this incredible thunder and lightning storm. And it was such a special moment for me. And I know it's a very rare experience for doctors and nurses to do something like that, especially with the patient that was so critical at the time. But it made me realize at that time just how important it was to have a team that works with you. As patients, we oftentimes maybe don't feel like we have control. We, are in a medical situation, which makes us feel like we're out of control in the first place. But we have to remember that we are our biggest advocates. You want your family to advocate for you. You want your doctors and nurses to advocate for you. Nobody's going to advocate for you stronger than you will. So you need to remember that you are your biggest advocate, and it's up to you to really find the team that you feel most comfortable with and that you trust. And I think through that, incredible things can happen. In fact, I've had miraculous recovery moments throughout my entire life, and a lot of that is with brilliant doctors and nurses by my side. I was calling everybody that I knew who knew anybody to try to find the best vascular surgeons out there. They didn't have to be in my area, and that's the thing that's so nice about technology these days is I was meeting with surgeons on the computer, just virtual, meeting with surgeons I otherwise never would have met with before. I ended up meeting with the Boston bombing surgeon who worked on a lot of the Boston bombing patients at that time, and he was going through my charts and trying to figure out what to do. I ended up finding an incredible vascular surgeon who really I went through probably 3 or 4 vascular surgeons before I found him, but I knew that he was the one because he saw me as an individual, not just as a patient.
He was an athlete himself. He's actually a 3-time Ironman plus a vascular surgeon. And so he just got it. He knows what it feels like to be an athlete. He knows what I'm trying to get back to. He was able to put himself in my shoes and say, man, you know, if I was in her situation, I'd be knocking down doors as well. And I'd want to do everything that I could do. And so he came in right away with the right energy. He said, Amy, I'm going to do everything I can to get you where you want to be. The initial team that came in were looking at me as a patient. You know, they were looking at me as this textbook, okay, she's an amputee, she has a blood clot, there's nothing we can do. Whereas this other doctor looked at me as an individual and saw me as an athlete and knows what my values are. And we were able to align our values together. It's incredible, the technology that we have, the fact that we're not confined by even, you know, city or state borders. You can see the doctors that you want to see as long as they're doing virtual calls. I've actually found what's really amazing, it's easier to get into doctors virtually because they might set 1 day a week up that's all virtual calls versus, you know, it might take months to get in to see a doctor in person, but they're willing to see you next week virtually. Two doctors are always going to tell you something that you don't want to hear at some point in our lives. But if you trust them, and I think that's the most important thing, if you trust them, then you go, okay, that's where it ends, right? Like I listen and I trust you. So I don't need to push this any further because I trust what my doctor has to say. So building that trust with each other is incredibly important and allows you to live an incredible life, even if you need kind of extra medical care. I am so grateful for my team. I mean, truly, when I think about how I've gone on to win medals and do Dance with the Stars and travel the world, you know, being in the situation that I've been in, it's my doctors that have allowed me to do that because they've kept me healthy along the way.